Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 151. And no, I could not find a bottle of 151 on the shelves, saving you all from the sloppiest, drunkest version of me. But hello, my name is Logan. I am your host, and with me tonight is the next iteration of the better version of Charmer. It's Eric Longquist, otherwise known to the greater community as Doa. Doa, thank you for filling in as our friend is currently getting charmered in Italy.
You know, I heard things were going poorly, but I don't know all the details yet. I'm looking forward to finding out. Poor guy, though. I mean, he's been looking forward to this vacation for a long time. So I hope it's mostly being fun. Again, not knowing all the details. But I guess I'll find out soon enough. I'm trying to cover everything on the Star Wars Unlimited side of things. You're trying to cover everything on the Flesh and Blood side of things. So here we are.
Here we are, and he abandoned both of us is really what this turns into.
It's okay.
But it's okay. Family, and he needed the time, really. He's been going through it, and I would say of like the 8 days of vacation, he's going to get 5 solid days.
Good.
Which on a charmer scale is better than he could ever hope for, to be honest. Yeah. I mean,
it's like that Bad News Brian meme grew up, and then their hair became dark, and it became Charmer.
Correct. Yeah. And last I heard, they were enjoying a great meal in Italy at a very nice restaurant, and his son had a bathroom accident.
Nice.
And as Sophie, his wife, tried to take their son to the Airbnb to get him changed, she fell on the stairs and broke her toe.
Oh, no.
And, yeah. And then Charmer cryptically tweeted, or Blue Sky. What do we call this?
Blued?
Skied? Blue. Ooh. Yeah, blued. He blew this. He blued it. And Arrested Development's one of my favorite shows. But so what he blued out there was that he can't wait to come back to this show to talk about everything that went sideways.
I saw that blue.
Yeah, I saw him blue that. And and then his wife on Facebook, because his wife and my wife are Facebook friends. She's like, yeah, Sophia's talking about Charmer being sick. And I'm like, oh no,
that poor guy.
Yeah.
You know, what's crazy though, about his wife breaking her toe is that I actually broke my big toe on my left foot on the last day of my honeymoon. So it wasn't like, so I also have vacation toe breaking experience, but at least mine was on the last day. I was running down a beach into the water, the crystal clear water of this island off the coast of Thailand. And I found the only rock in this beautiful, perfect, pristine beach and shattered the big bone into 3 pieces. Yep.
Yeah. By the way, just casually tell us you're cooler than us without telling us you're cooler than us by talking about your honeymoon in Thailand.
That doesn't make me cool. The reason I say that is because it took 2 full days to get from there back to Seoul. And so that was 2 days of untreated broken toe too. So it was a wild ride. Yeah.
You learned how to walk on your heels.
Yeah. Oh, and I learned to just pretend that it was sprained. And I was like, it's definitely just sprained. And there's like the purple, when you break a bone, you get like the dark purple lines around the place that's broken. Like I'm like, it's definitely, but I tried to believe it wasn't broken, but we got back to Seoul and it was definitely broken.
I've broken a lot of bones, so I'm intimately familiar with the circles and lines.
Yeah, I haven't broken a ton yet, but a couple, enough to know.
Every finger, every toe, ankle, shoulder, or well, not broken, but separated. Bone chips in elbow, 1 wrist, and reconstructive knee surgery. So,
wow.
We put some miles on this old car.
Welcome to the Old Guy Podcast, where we just talk about our ailments for 2 hours.
They're used to this at this point in time. It's all existential dread and existence is pain.
My body is falling apart.
It's exactly that. But I know that you've been a little absentee from Flesh and Blood recently after casting U.S. Nationals. So that was really fun, by the way. And I went back and watched the cast. Yeah, I went back and watched the cast. I thought you're brilliant. Then again, I'm pretty sure that I'm in the vast majority when I say that. You're very well beloved in the circles of casting and commentary. You're very good.
I appreciate
and
that. Thank you.
Top notch, and you elevate everybody around you, which is also just one of those hallmarks of a great caster, really.
Thank you.
And but I will like to report, like, so I'm sure that you kept up with some of the news.
Okay.
And Zen ate a lot of bands, and you're a Zen guy, you're a ninja guy.
Yeah. I'm a diehard ninja player to the extent that like I struggle to get interested in any of the other classes in Flesh and Blood, honestly. Like I play Illusionist a little bit, but that's about it. I'm just kind of ninja through and through. So like it's tough to keep up with Fab sometimes for me, because like I just genuinely, I love the core mechanics of the game, but I also just really love playing ninja. And so that if there isn't new ninja stuff coming out, and like Katsu, it's just tough to, and your character isn't the greatest. It's tough to stick with it. But I probably would have stuck with it a little bit more. I had thought I'd be doing a little bit more casting this year. It seemed that was sort of, not said, but sort of like indicated to me, but then they just never got back to me. So I was like, okay, that's, and other companies that make card games did. And so I've been doing a little bit more with other card games, and it's not that I don't love Flesh and Blood, any less than I did before. It's just part of its business, and I'll still show up at armories and play Katsu and have some fun. But as far as diving deep into the game, I haven't really done that in a couple months now.
Well, Katsu caught a lot of strays from Zen bands.
But sure. I like that though. I actually was happy that the Bonds got banned, because Bonds was so oppressive in terms of deck building for Katsu and really like almost any ninja, So I like that we got to go back to the old breakpoint list with Katsu. I feel like that's a much more fun way to play the hero. So I'm actually like, I was thrilled when those bands came through. I'm like, Zen's fun, but like Katsu's my main. So now I get to go back and play the more fun version of him, even if it's not quite as strong.
So it was interesting because, that first weekend after the Zen bans, Katsu top 8's the first calling.
Yeah.
In a very traditional Katsu list, right? It was
people forgot how to play against it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we saw the Mugenshi hit, which you should never let that happen.
Yeah.
And triple Lordawind. Okay. Yeah. And then regrow all these cards. We's in trouble. So that was fun to watch on stream. But
yeah,
right now, so I just got back from my local ProQuest.
Cool.
That was CC. We had one yesterday that was draft. I played in that one, and I won the first round, and I won the last round, and I won fuck all in between. But
how it goes sometimes.
It does. But today at the CC one, the Zen won. And I won on the back of a Zen state token that prevented 25 damage.
Wow. I mean, if it's all individual, points, ticks of one. Yeah. I was telling people back with Kasaya, I was like, I think people should be using the Zen state token thing a little bit more than they are. A lot of people just, I'll block with it. But I'd won games by using the Zen state token and avoiding some damage back when I was playing a little bit more Zen. So that's awesome to hear. I'm not surprised. Like that chess piece is so good. And a big part of it that people keep underestimating is the Zen state token, for sure.
Yeah, the Viscerai player started drawing circles, which is, what happens.
Yep.
And I'm watching the Zen line, and I'm like, okay, this is an interesting line, knowing that he has a Transcend card in hand, and he chooses to Transcend at the end of his turn and hold the Chi. And he flat out tells the Viscerai player, I'm holding this until you blow those.
Yep.
And the guy's like, okay, I got to send him now then. And so he sends, I think it was 17 rune chants or something along, or 18 along those lines with an attack. He's like, yep, Zen state it is. And it was like, ooh, we just ate. That's basically a triple time walk is what it turned into.
Yeah.
And, well, your first 3 turns of doing stuff are just completely nullified now. And you had to do it. Otherwise, like I said, he's just going to play a 3-card hand until you do. It was wildly impressive, but great job by Jonathan Riddle, a friend of ours from Nebraska, on Zen. It was fun to watch. I had told my locals beginning on Thursday, I just played Zen at Armory, and because I was just like, you know what, I wonder. And so I rolled in with a pretty decent list, kind of a make flick flack great again list. and lots of combo, stuff like that. I'm sick of whiffing on Ancestral Harmony deck. It's really what it was.
Oh, okay, sure.
And the only loss was a really close one to New, which used to be a god awful matchup. It's like, one more Flick Flack, and I probably, when you draw one more Flick Flack, I probably win this one. And so I talked to the guy that won yesterday during the draft ProQuest. We were kind of comparing lists, and he was one card off of me. The lists were identical except for one card.
Interesting.
And
how Tiger heavy do you go? You go more just generic ninja combo stuff, or?
It's pretty Tiger heavy, honestly, but most of the Tiger cards have combo stapled to them.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And Spinning Wheel Kick is your friend.
Yep, for sure.
So that's fantastic. And yeah, so Ancestral, and like I said, it makes Ancestral Harmony feel great. And the other part is being able to just like every now and again have that 100 wins for a billion turn, because you just are 5 wide on 100 wins. That also feels pretty good. And so we kind of talked through it, and I had been telling locals, this is a real deck. You need to actually pay attention. This is not something to sleep on. And he shows up and he takes it down. Nice. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting here for that to happen, because they're really like off the radar. People expected a bunch of Dash IO. We'll kind of get into this later, but and it just wasn't there. Yeah, it just wasn't there. But
maybe it's too new.
Interesting.
I mean, like it's that list potential is still a little bit too new, I think. And like Dash IO is not easy hero to play, I would say too.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I feel like that's I haven't looked at the new list aside from just like a very tertiary glance, but just in general, I feel like that hero is one that you're going to need more reps on.
Yeah. It's I've been burning some games on Talisher on occasion just to kind of get an idea. And in reality, it's the same Dash IO list as always. They just replaced, 4 cards. They replaced the chess piece, or added the chess piece, I should say, from the Armory deck, and added 3 Cerebellum processors, which is just a simple item that draws a card.
Okay. Well, that
turns out that's
quite good for her.
Good. Yeah. And then the chess piece is one that you break the chest, and whenever you boost this turn, you gain a resource.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in a high octane turn where you're gaining an action point and a resource after every boost, you then get to do a bunch of stuff. And then Cerebellum processors draw you a card, and you have the extra action points to draw cards, and then it just goes hard.
See, like how much would you say the deck is based around like one big turn like that, and like that's hard. Your turn? Yeah. So see, I feel like we're in this era where a lot of maybe I'm just wrong on this, but it feels to me like a lot of decks just rely on that. It's like, I'm going to set up for my one big turn, and that's my game of Flesh and Blood. And when I compare that to, and Zen is a great example of this too. When I compare that to how the game was when I started playing around, like Everfest had just come out is when I really started playing, it felt very, back and forth. It felt, like I'm going to do, my 8 to 10 damage turn. You're going to try to do your 8 to 10 damage turn. And we're going to both be trying to do those turns and kind of outmaneuvering each other until we're done, until one of us falls over. And I liked that. I felt like that was a good place for the game to be, that was also the time when, you had Oldhim and stuff like that, so, but in general, it felt to me like decks weren't so reliant on the one big turn, and like I said, maybe I'm just wrong. I don't have a good read on the meta right now, but when you say that about Dash IO, I think about Zen, and I kind of think about, that it feels like a good amount of decks try to do that kind of thing. Kasai building up, a copper or whatever, and
right for blood on her
building
hands.
Up gold. Yeah, I mean, so it's stuff like that where it's like build up a resource and then just spend it all in one big turn. Rune chants are another good example. And so if I had any criticism, I would start to be a little bit concerned that this type of deck seems to be showing up more often and doing well. Just kind of, it's a thought in the back of my mind, right? Because I like I said, even though I'm not doing a ton with Flesh and Blood right now, I still really love the game and I want it to do well. They've made it 5 years, which is incredible. They deserve to. It's a fantastic card game. But I do worry because I just don't think that's a very fun way to play the game. Yeah. Then like 80% of your game is just set up and not a lot is happening. So.
Yeah, I kind of think that if you're going to build those types of decks into the game, and I'm fine with them being in the game, but I think that when you do it, you have to do it kind of similar to Magic in a way where if you think about Storm as an example of a deck, Storm would just do nothing until it either won or it just lost because it couldn't do anything. And I kind of think of Dash.io like that, where you don't block. You don't have the ability to block. Your items don't even have a block value. So you either win or you just die. And I think that that's enough of a counterplay to it that it kind of forces the deck to be in that B tier-ish.
Okay.
And I think that that's okay. If you want to play that style, fine. I'm with you. That's not how I enjoy the game.
I just don't want every game to be like that.
Right, sure.
Kano, Viscerai, Zen,
Kano,
Dash.io now, it's Kasai. Like it's just, if it's one or two, great. That style should be out there, that player fantasy should be out there in a game. But if it starts to get a little bit too prevalent, that's where I start to get a little bit concerned.
Yeah, I think they clawed it back with a lot of the bans because they banned all books, apparently. They just don't believe in literacy. But I feel like they have clawed back on that quite a bit.
Turning down card draw was probably a good idea.
Yeah, especially
Art of War. Oh, finally.
Yeah, that's a big one where that needed to happen.
Yeah, it was a really fun card, but it was one of those things where it's like you look at like the Power 9 and Magic and all that, and you're like, it's on that level, I think, where it's just like great card, tons of fun to play, but a little bit too strong and definitely restrictive when it comes to card design down the line,
Yeah.
So I'm glad they finally banned it. Yeah.
Yeah. It had 4.5 years or so of run. Like
that's more time than a lot of cards like that have in card games, honestly. Right. And every card game that has ever been made will always have cards like that, in the first couple sets. It's just the nature of card games where you don't really understand the power level of what you're doing yet. You can, and like I've been part of playtesting for certain TCGs and things, and it depends from game to game, but you've got a group of maybe like a dozen to 25 to 30 people playtesting this, and they play a ton of games, and you get a sense of things. But even with that, once it gets out there in the real world and thousands of millions of games start getting played, things are going to happen that you don't expect. And that's, you just have to deal with that after the fact. That's the nature of TCGs, I feel like.
Yeah, I kind of actually remember when the hive mind really took over specifically in Magic is when the Moto MTGO, Magic the Gathering Online beta went open. So this would have been 2002, 2003, 2001, 2002. And that's when the hive mind of message boards and IRC started to like get those hundreds and hundreds of games in. And then people just had the list, right? Versus finding it in an Inquest 2 months after the event happened.
Yeah, Inquest, man. Next, you're going to bring
Inquest up... Scry.
I was going to say Scry. Yeah, you're going to bring up that next, yeah.
Inquest was fun. Scry was for the real hardcore people.
I was a Scry reader, yes.
So was I.
But and like a lot of, and I've said before, we live in I would say the second TCG golden age now. This really is. We are in such a golden age of card games. There's so many games coming out and so many good games coming out. Card shops are packed every night, at least in LA where I am, and in the Twin Cities in Minnesota where I lived for a while last year. All the card shops are packed every night. People are playing again. You have multiple generations playing. It's great. And it reminds me a lot of the late 90s, early 2000s, where we had that first big wave of card games and we had something similar, right? But what I do miss a little bit about that time is sort of the mystery that went into, and the discovery that went into playing and going to your locals and all that, because you didn't even necessarily know every card that existed in a set, because there just weren't sites out there that told you that. Maybe a magazine would tell you, but sometimes not after the fact, not until the expansion came out. So you could play for months and then see a new card you'd never seen before. And it was just fun, and be like, oh, I got to add that to my deck, and I do miss that. I do miss when metas weren't fairly solved when an expansion dropped already,
what being a Scry reader tells me, though?
What's that?
You are a Star Wars CCG player.
Oh, yes.
Because that was the better Star Wars CCG content was in Scry.
Yes.
By miles.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Let me just reach over a couple feet and grab my Cloud City booster pack here.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
sitting
sure,
around.
You want the here's an OTSD.
Oh, nice.
Here's a pack of Tatooine.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's actually worth a bit.
Well,
Yeah.
And then what else we got here? Oh, a little enhanced Premier Vader.
Oh, nice.
Still sealed.
Oh, so you were a player as well. You were a CCG player as well. That's great.
That was my first game.
Oh, okay. That was
Star Wars CCG.
That was my second game. I started playing Magic in like 95, and then I started playing the Star Wars CCG and just fell in love with it. And then when I was in high school, in freshman year of high school, all my cards were stolen out of my locker.
Oh,
someone just broke in and just took everything. And so I had to make a choice.
Minnesota?
This was in Wisconsin.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
I mean, yeah, people steal things in the Midwest, believe it or
I
not.
mean,
and it's a high school. High school.
Okay.
It just happens, right? Someone got into my locker, stole all my cards. And so being the broke high schooler that I was, I had to like choose. I couldn't keep playing both games. I had to like pick one. I picked Star Wars because like, this game is just so near and dear to my heart. I played in a lot of tournaments back then and won a couple and had a lot of fun with it. And then I kind of quit when a lot of people quit, when they just had to stop making the game, unfortunately. But man, still one of the best, if not maybe the best CCG ever made. Such a great card game.
Yeah, it's by far the most complex rule set. Without question.
Maybe a little bit too complex, if we're honest.
At times.
Maybe a little bit.
The other thing that really kind of got out of hand in the game is how much real estate the board would take up once you start getting a big chain of locations going.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it's like, you needed like a solid 4 to 6 feet per game sometimes.
That was so cool though, because
it was awesome.
Felt like your characters,
it was cinema.
They were really moving from place to place,
right?
And that was just awesome, right? Where it's like you can control different planets, and you can have space battles, and you can have reinforcements arrive, and like there's a suspense of will they get there in time? It's nothing. No other game has ever captured no other IP related game has ever captured the feel of that IP like the Star Wars CCG captured the feel of Star Wars, for sure.
I don't think they ever will. Like, honestly.
No. I mean, and it's
Lord of the Rings was close.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings was really good. Also Decipher. Also Decipher game. But yeah, I mean, I gotta shout out Star Wars Unlimited here, because I do think they do a really good job of incorporating the Star Wars fantasy, the lore into the cards. Cards do things that feel very lore appropriate. So I think they're very much trying to put that in their game, which they should. It's a Star Wars card game, and I think they're doing a good job of that. But nothing really transported you like the old Star Wars CCG does. But again, and that was because of the rule set. When you look at how the rules of the game worked, that enabled those cards to be printed, those decks to be made, and that rule set just should not exist, because it is way too complex. It is way too complex. Even as someone who loves complicated card games, that's not a rule set that should ever come back again. But it was so great, but it would just never succeed these days.
No, it absolutely would not. Attention spans aren't long enough, and it was so detail oriented in how everything operated. But it's the original pitch stacking too. Yeah, it's reactor terminal and traffic control.
Yep. And because you could go through your deck so fast because of the way the force system worked in that game, that also, so it really enabled you to play a very consistent game every game. But it also allowed them to print cards where it was like, if this character is with this character at this location, you get to do this with this interrupt. And so it's like these 4 cards need to be in this exact place at the exact time for it to work. But you could do that because you could go through your deck so quickly that you could set that up, very consistently. So
Trench Run and Commence Primary Ignition were the same way. You had to set it up.
I love carbon freezing people, getting all your knots and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a Cloud City. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Did that a lot. A lot of bounty hunting happened. And I still remember, I think it was a couple 3 years ago, sitting around and somebody was like, man, was Star Wars CCG really that complex? One of my locals. And I was like, hold please. And I still have the bound rule book that came after, I want to say, Dagobah.
Yeah, I think they did one then, yeah.
And I'm like, here are the rules after set like 5.
I don't have one of those. I want to get that. But I remember when Hoth came out, which was the 3rd expansion, because it was
Yep.
Premiere, A New Hope, and then Hoth. It was, I remember I was over at my friend's house and we made his dad really angry at us because we used up all of the ink in the printer printing the rule supplement. It was like 60 pages or something. And I remember him just being like,
what do
used
shield
up all my
generators
ink."
do?
Yeah. It's like the late 90s, man.
Oh yeah, because
Ink was expensive back then. I don't know.
I used
Still
to,
is, but-
I worked in office supplies forever. And I remember us calculating one time how much more printer ink was worth than gold.
That's funny.
And it was like a 6x.
It's what's hilarious too is that I remember him just being like so mad because he didn't even like that we played card games. He was like, he didn't want his kid playing card games. It was still kind of new back then and all that.
Yeah.
And so not only were we playing this game that he didn't like, but we used up all his printer ink on the stupid rules supplement. And that was, I'll never forget that. It was not funny at the time. It was scary, but it was hilarious now. It's hilarious now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of just want to skip all the rest of the show notes and go straight to this talk, but let's just hit on some couple of quick Flesh and Blood things because we're going to turn a corner where we're outside of Flesh and Blood for a good while.
It's supposed to be a Flesh and Blood podcast, I heard, so I don't want to.
We are not the best at staying on task. And you know what? I don't think that any, this is 151 weeks of this show in a row. Wow. Never missed, right?
Wow, that's awesome.
And our podcast community would never trade them for anything because they are the absolute level best when it comes to encouraging us to just be us. Like the genuine nature of what we do and the fact that we do not compromise anything ever is just what they value. So when we get into these tangents and shit, this is what they expect and this is what they enjoy.
That's good.
And it's like, yeah, that means I don't have to have a routinized set of show notes. I can just go off the hook and talk about the best thing to talk about at the moment. Sometimes that's a game that died 23 years ago.
Yeah, it's just a podcast. Come on.
It's just a podcast, right? And this is one episode of 151. Like, what's so bad? A couple of quick hits. We'll talk a little bit through ProQuest season week 2. We saw Enigma still was pacing the field. I'm still curious about that, but sure. Enigma 23 wins. And then Aurora with 18, Viscera and Florian behind that. But the Rune Blades added together have 48 total wins, which is incredibly high.
I was curious how Rosetta would affect the meta. And like I said, I honestly haven't touched Rosetta yet. It's just not, there's just no, like I said before, like if it's not Ninja, it's really honestly hard for me to get interested in playing the other classes because it's also like a big financial investment, honestly, to pick up a new deck in Flesh and Blood. I think unfortunately one of the drawbacks of the game is that it's still a very expensive game to play seriously.
It can be.
And it depends on the deck, obviously. Like old school Dash, sure, super cheap, $100 deck, but some of the new ones, wizard stuff, go find some Stormstriders, right? But
right.
So it's like if I always looked at it, I'm like, well, why would I pick up this hero on the side when I'm only going to play it until the Ninja stuff comes out, and then I'm spending all the stuff and I mean, maybe it's just me, but so I haven't touched Rosetta yet. I think looks cool, but I haven't played it all. So I was curious how the Rune Blades would impact things because in the past, Rune Blades have always meant, for the most part, aside from maybe like Fincet, they've meant strength and wins.
It's about $130 for a functional Aurora deck.
Oh, it's not too bad.
The high cost stuff is Gone in a Flash is like 20-ish.
Okay.
Current funnels are like 15. The legendary legs from the new set are like 30.
Oh, okay. That's good. So would you say the legendary prices are coming down in general?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. That's what the game needs, honestly.
Yep. Your big problem, and I think you talked about this, and I think you kind of backed into it a little bit, but the thing that you said that's a salient point that I think that it needs to be continually made is that the early years of this game are sometimes way too informative of the current years of this game.
Sure.
So things like Command and Conquer obviously are still expensive. They're still $80 Warmonger's Diplomacy is, Planet in Dust Till Dawn is $80.
How's Enlightened Strike?
Back up to 45.
Okay. Yeah. Those staples are, and it's the thing is those make such a big impact in a deck too,
Mm-hmm.
playing with them versus playing without them, that it is hard to avoid them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
But I still remember like the first, so because you and I have only hung out once in person, right?
right.
Easiest conversations I've ever had though. So
Oh,
great. Good
thank
on
you.
you. And we were having the conversation about how on the nose Flesh and Blood is.
Mhm.
And then you pick up Aurora and you're looking, you're like, you have your art on your phone and like, and this they just missed. Like they could have just called this some variant of Storm. It looks exactly like Storm. I'm like, yeah, they did.
Well,
Like,
it's
what are you talking about?
Aurora
I'm
in
like,
the X-Men,
Aurora,
Yeah.
Aurora. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, they did it. I'm like,
Oh yeah, you were the one
yeah,
who, yeah, that's right. I forgot yeah. It's there is that. I mean, that's one of the charms of the games,
it
right?
is.
It's, you can kind of see where the names came from and all that. But yeah, it's yeah, am I weird that I miss these supplemental sets?
No, you're
Okay.
not.
All right.
And I think so. The expansion slot in my mind is working at about 75% efficiency.
Okay.
I feel like there needs to be a smaller print run of, I feel like there needs to be a smaller print run of expansion slot cards due to frequency of them being in packs.
Mhm.
And that they should be almost, and that they should be tuned to, classes that need help. But anything generic should never show up in that slot.
Mhm.
And there should still be full supplemental sets that contain generics.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I think that is helpful for the game after experiencing some, one of the Warmonger's problem is probably the biggest one right now.
Mhm.
Warmonger's in the weakest link. Like weakest link is actually in a set proper. And because it's so good into a bunch of different decks, I don't even know if the card does, but it's a 2-for-6 that it's a 2-for-6 block 3, right? Red. So it's a command and conquer stats. And then it's on hit as you look at your opponent's hand and you make them discard cards that have no defense value.
Right.
So it gets their items, it gets their instance, if if there's no point in playing it, things like that. And
I played a couple of those in Zen, actually, like
okay.
As a sideboard kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. But last I looked, they were like $60-$65 a shot.
Wow.
And right, because it's a generic. Everybody has access to it. And when you have those kind of chase generics in slots that are, less broad, it makes it rough. Now, Warmongers is a specific problem because it's in an expansion slot in an expansion set.
Yeah.
So a non-draftable set in an expansion slot, and it has an outsized impact as a blue block 3 with tremendous upside into certain matchups. So that's problematic. And I feel like they either need to be more aggressive about printing those cards into different avenues. And this comes as somebody that owns 7 copies of the damn thing. Just if I can get like a 2-week notice so I can flush my extras, that'd be great. But I understand if you can't. But I feel like that those things need to be looked at and addressed. But it's TCG print run cycles, right?
Sure.
They've had the sets in the can for a year, and so it's
That is true. That is something people forget, is that a lot of times the set has to get locked in like a long time before it sees the light of day. And that's just because it takes time to print cards, and you gotta, do like the checks and everything to make sure things are printing correctly, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it does have to get done way, way early. That said, like, it's funny, like stepping away from the game a little bit has made me more willing to take a look at some of the criticisms I had with the game, because again I have to go back and say, like, the core rules of the game are just so fantastic. They're just so good. There's no other card game like it. The way that turns are constructed and flow is just so unique and cool that I love the game at its core, right? But I don't really like the way that they do expansions now, where it's like expansions tend to be hyper focused. Sometimes it's the mechanologist expansion, or it's it's these 3 classes and that's these 3 classes. And it's like, I don't really understand you have to be like a huge Flesh and Blood fan to be like, all right, I'm going to try this new hero. I'm going to build this deck. Now I'm going to do this new one. I'm going to build this deck, and I'm going to, and you're going to just constantly keep changing heroes and classes just to keep playing the new stuff. I have no desire to do that, right? I
No.
just find the way I like to play the game, and I like to, update my deck with things that sort of like flow with that. That's why I'm kind of like a ninja only player, and
Yeah.
and I know from talking to a lot of other players that I'm not alone, or maybe even that unique in this, where and the game I feel like the game even incentivizes you a little bit to pick a class like you would pick a sports team almost,
Yeah.
and like that's your team and that's what you want to support. And so for a lot of players like that, you feel sometimes now like 3/4 of the year just isn't even for you, And
Mhm.
so it's like, I want to engage with this game and I want to get excited about the new stuff, but I'm just not, I think I see this stuff and I'm like, oh, that looks really cool for people that like that,
Right.
and that's how I feel about, Rosetta and everything. I'm like, that looks really cool for people that like that stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of like, all right, when's the new ninja stuff coming out? It's
Sure.
yeah. So I hesitate to be too critical about it because again, I really do like the game, but I stepping away from it a little bit and being more into some of the other card game scenes around the industry and looking at how things are done and comparing it. I'm like, yeah, I think there's some like I have some like genuine criticisms with the way that
Mhm.
expansions are done right now in that game that I'd like to see change. And the first big one is, I do think we need supplemental sets again. I think it's rough for players that are, really dedicated to one or two classes to have to wait a long time to get any real support. Because expansion slots, let's be honest, like, are they, sometimes the card is incredibly good and then it's really expensive because they're all majestics. Otherwise, they're duds and then nobody wants it anyway. So you've got this very feast or famine element with the expansion slot that's existed kind of since it's come out, and that's not fun either, right? It's either, how many boxes am I going to have to get my place out of this, or how much am I going to have to pay to get my place out of this, or well, there's just nothing for me,
Right. No,
So
I agree.
yeah,
And
I'm not a big fan of it.
I think that one of the things they've done a bit better is the introduction of armory decks. I think that has
Yeah, those are
been
great. Yeah,
a great idea, full stop.
absolutely. Yeah,
And
couldn't agree
we've
more.
had a lot of people that had not been able to find a great on ramp into the game, but were interested.
Mhm.
Immediately pick up an armory deck, begin to understand the hero, lean into the hero. But we then see the same thing that you're talking about, which is, I bought the KO armory deck. I love playing KO. I got the KO stuff. When do
Where's
we
all
get
the
more
new brute
KO?
stuff? Yeah,
When do we get new brute stuff? And it's
yeah.
like,
Well, you
and
get one card that it'll either be expensive or bad.
yeah, you
And
better hope.
that's yeah. Yeah, but
And
no, I agree. The armory decks are fantastic because
yeah,
Blitz was never really the way the game was meant to be played, in my opinion. So
no,
having that be the on ramp, I feel like gave people kind of an unrealistic, look at the game, especially when you consider when you start to play Blitz at like skirmish season, all that, the games are
skirmishes.
over, like,
Yeah,
so you get just destroyed if you try to bring any subpar Blitz deck, right? And the games are so fast too, you just get wrecked if you're a new player. So I'm really, really happy to see the armory decks and the more of the emphasis into CC, and that's the kind of thing where it's like, hey, if I want to just try out this hero, I will pick up one of those, and
Mhm.
I'll be like, this is great because now I can have this experience and take a little break without having to have a big investment into it, So
Right.
yeah, I think the army decks are fantastic for that. But back to what you're saying too, if somebody really gets into it, then it's like, okay, where's my new Azalea support? How
Mhm.
long am I gonna have to wait for that? Mid
Right.
2025. So
We hope.
yeah.
But and also to your point, like I collected a playset of every card printed
Wow.
up until Bright Lights.
Okay.
And I have zero desire to ever play a mechanologist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of that is this is a old story for everybody that's listened to this for all 151 episodes, but which there are some of those. The when I started the game was in Monarch when Chain was Chain.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I bought everything for the deck. I'm like, sweet, this is basically Dredge. I played that in Magic, and I can understand this deck immediately. So it's a great on-ramp for me. Getting ready for a competitive season, and Seeds of Agony gets banned. And I'm
Yep.
like, okay, so now we have arrived at a crossroads very early in this game. I can either say I'm done because I tried, I bought into it, and I had something banned out from under me, and that just turned me completely off.
Mhm.
Or I love this game. I feel like this game is going to stand the test of time, that the rule set is great, and I enjoy myself too much, and I have to own a playset of every card. That way this can never happen to me again. And that's the
Mm.
route I went. So at that point in time, I opened a bunch of product. I found cases at reasonable prices, and I built a playset of Welcome to Wraith, Arcane Rising, Crucible, Monarch, and at that time, Tales, when Tales came out, Tales, and then kept going up until Bright Lights.
Mhm.
And then when Bright Lights hit and was all Mechanologist, I was like, I don't care
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
all.
and you feel bad, right? Because like you love the
A
game.
little bit, yeah.
You love the game, and like that's why I didn't talk about it for a long time, because I felt bad. I was like, I don't want to not like things about this game. I love Flesh and Blood, but
Mhm.
it's just gotten to the point where I'm just like, I feel like I have to talk about it, where I feel bad, but yeah, I had no interest in really, playing that. I still did because I felt like I should, but then after that I was like, should I? Really? Like why should I? If I'm
Right.
not into this, why should I spend the money? Why should I put the time in? Why can't I just play what I've been playing and keep enjoying that
Yeah.
and try to just, hold out
I
until
mean,
more stuff comes out?
I drafted the ever loving shit out of Bright Lights,
Hmm.
not because I loved Bright Lights draft, but because I'm a draft junkie.
Oh,
And
see,
that's
I'm sure Charmer told you I'm not a limited guy. So
yeah, correct. Yeah. And Charwer and I have that same thing where we are, it's, you want to draft? What are you drafting? Arcane Rising. Oh, that's a shitty draft set. Yeah, here's my money. Because it's just a draft. Like it's just the appeal of a draft.
Sure.
And we'll get into that here shortly too, because I think that plays into the TCG discussion a bit. And it's also in the notes, the IO deck is out. I solicited the community on Blue Sky. By the way, the Flesh and Blood community on Blue Sky is almost a full transfer at this point.
Wow, really?
It is monstrous already.
Huh, that's interesting.
Because it was a few days ago where it kind of just hive mind said, you know what, we're done over here on this cesspool that is Twitter. Let's just all migrate. Let's all do this. And I didn't even have a Flesh and Pot account on Blue Sky. I had a personal account from when they were invites that had like 20 followers or whatever. And there was no activity ever. So I'm like, okay, fine. I created the show, and I'm still getting 80 to 90 notifications a day of new followers and new activity, and without any of the chaff in between. I'm like, the community has made a decision, and that is, we're over here now.
That's great. I would love for all the communities I'm a part of to make that decision, or at least, nobody really wants to be on Twitter or X or whatever it is anymore. No, but it's like, as far as, especially on the esports side, and like that's where my biggest following is by far, and like it's still where the best place to get information out for, all the things I'm involved in. But man, I wish I could just not use it at all. I mean, I wish I could be off all social media and just never do it again.
Oh, agreed.
Job wise, you can't escape from it. So,
no.
But I just downloaded Blue Sky again like yesterday. I hadn't used it in months, and so I'll be posting. Now I need to find something that lets me just post on everything at once. And
that would be fantastic.
That stuff does exist, but you have to pay for it. So.
But why?
I mean, because somebody may, I get it.
I know why, but that doesn't mean I like it.
I know. Pay for good work, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So on Blue Sky, I solicited the community to say, hey, if you've had any Dash IOs winning, Pro Quests, let me know. Like I'm curious. I want to see what kind of numbers we had at the Pro Quest today. There was one in the entire field of 23 players, one Dash IO.
Okay.
And didn't make top 8. Okay. It kind of okay. And a lot of people like, oh, it's availability. And it's like, sir, there is There are 8 Dash.io decks sitting on the shelf of this shop.
I don't think Fab has a big availability problem compared to a lot of the other games that are out there right now.
In some areas, I know that the Dash.io deck has been a problem because people will walk in, buy them off the shelf, throw them on TCG Player with a 30% markup and call it a day.
Hate that.
Yeah, me too. But our community here is just not that. And so you can still buy, the Azalea deck, the Bolton deck, the Dash deck are all readily available right now in my local area. It's great. And for retail, like for just MSRP, no markup at all. So that's, I do love our LGSs and our community here because they are that way. But I don't personally believe that any missing IO decks, from the results would be an availability issue. If it were a great deck. There is also every team is keeping the sauce to themselves. We're coming up on Worlds. And so the lists aren't out there. Well, that's kind of bullshit too.
You think so? I think that sounds like a maybe legitimate reason if teams think, but I feel like if that was the case, we would have heard about those lists existing, even if you haven't seen them,
Yeah. And I know a lot of teams have been working on it. I also know a lot of people who are very convinced by it are now off of it for a variety of reasons. And the deck I saw, the most popular deck at this ProQuest was Aurora, and second was Victor.
Okay.
So because Victor's game into specifically Aurora and Dash.io is really good.
He seems to be the guardian that is able to, be immune to, metas that are rough for guardians.
Right. Largely because of Trounce and Testa strength, because against those decks, you're almost always going to get the reward from it, which is drawing a card, replacing the card you just blocked with. And in some cases creating extra value. And all right. And then you still have the disruption suite. You're still a guardian at the end of the day. So pretty good. And sure enough, 2 of the 3 victors that were in the tournament were in the top 8, and the other one was in 9th. So made absolute sense. But right now I'm wondering, because I only got, I think, 1 or 2 responses of somebody's like, yep, we had a Dash win over here. And it's like, okay, one of them was in Southeast Asia, I believe, which Dash in Asia is the hero. And has been in like Indonesia and Oceania, not Oceania necessarily, but like Southeast Asia in general. Japan is Ninja Land. They are Zen, Katsu, and Phi all day long.
I respect that.
And then also they're big into assassins over there too. That's kind of their jam.
The ninjas who aren't ninjas.
They're ninjas.
Yeah, they're kind of ninjas. It's kind of the essence.
Yeah. Well, considering one of the assassins literally has the ninjutsu ability from magic on the assassin.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
that's a ninja.
Yeah,
just gonna put it out there.
They know so
that. They know that. And so that was one of those things where the Dash didn't surprise me from that. And then there was one other, and I'm just like, am I going to see like the metagame breakdown come out, in a day or two where Dash.io won like 3? Is that what's going to happen? Because
it seems that way.
It kind of feels like it's much ado about nothing. Like, yeah, we had a game today where the Dash.io player was able to boost 3 times with a high octane and make a bunch of resources, or 4 times or whatever was the high octane, make a bunch of resources, and then max velocity twice, and didn't win.
Yeah, but like, and I mean, the thing is with people being like, oh, watch out, here comes this deck. It's like name a TCG community that didn't overreact to something being released,
Right.
And like, it was so funny, looking at like the Star Wars Limited first set come out and have something like first like, oh, this deck is unbeatable, the meta's destroyed, oh no, and then like a week later it's like, oh wait, this is really good into it. It's like, oh no, now this is the thing. And it's like every week it seemed like there was a new thing for a while until people
and it always cycles back to Boba Yellow.
Yeah. But even
So,
that, there's plenty of decks out there that beat Boba
oh
Yellow.
yeah,
I
sure.
know Boba is like crushing, planetary qualifiers all over the place. So it's not just Boba Yellow, it's Boba Green too. But but still, like I played a deck that was very good into both versions of Boba,
Mhm.
so they do exist.
They've been choked out of here pretty hard by mono green Palp and
You have
Bosk Blue.
you have people playing mono green Palpatine seriously in
Oh
your
yeah.
wow, that is wild because like those and Boba Blue or not Boba Blue, Bosk Blue too. That's crazy to me
Mm-hmm.
because those are all like heavy control decks. And so are your tournaments just everybody going to time every single round?
No, the people play fast.
Wow.
It's great.
Huh.
And
My meta is all very aggro and mid range.
I'm really the only pseudo dedicated aggro player when playing competitively over here. Everybody else is usually in the mid range or control side.
Interesting.
So it's pretty common for me to be the only true low to the ground aggro deck that's coming in.
Immediate vicinity, we've got like one really good Kira player, and that's like the best non aggro and mid-range. That although Kira even is like she's control, but she's like kind of close to mid-range a little bit still.
Yeah, I think it's closer to mid-range.
I think it's personally, I think it's a little bit closer to control because you win a lot of games with Avenger, and if you're doing then it's probably control. But she's the most mid-range of the control leaders and lists I think that's out there right now. Funny enough, I took second in 2 store showdowns in 1 week, and
with Casino on, right?
Yeah, Casino on. I lost to the same guy both tournaments, but because he played Kira, and that's like the only deck that's like the kryptonite for my deck. And I was like, come on, man. The second tournament, I knew he was going to be there. I even like totally changed up my sideboard just to try to beat him. And I still couldn't do it. I was like, that's just, it's just not a good matchup for me. What can you say,
I had, when I'm usually playing in locals, like in our weeklies or whatever, I'll play like Luke Blue, right?
Oh, okay.
Because it's not good. It's just, I'm having fun.
Yeah, it's a good medium strength.
Fine.
It's like a B plus A minus deck. Yeah.
Yeah, give or take. And so I forgot to bring it and it was playing Premiere, and the only thing I had on me was unupdated actual 0 set 2 cards Sabine Yellow. Only thing I had.
Still legit though. Sabine Yellow didn't get a lot of support in set 2, so
cleanest 3-0,
but
Sabine Green did, but cleanest 3-0 I could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I bet people just forgot how to play against it.
Yeah.
I mean, Sabine Cunning was like my deck in set 1. Like that was the one that I built and iterated on the entire set. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Because unbeknownst to you, because it always occurred in the pre-talk of this show, is Charmer and I would be talking about your list, his list, and my list.
Oh, yeah.
And where the differences were and where the agreements were. So it was very interesting to be on this side of that conversation with pseudo full information on both sides of it. And mine was somewhere between you and Charmer.
Okay.
It was a fun deck. It's a fun deck to play. It still is a fun deck to play.
Oh yeah, totally.
I think the only thing I'd throw into it differently is Hot Shot Blaster, and that's about it.
Oh, definitely.
That card's great. Mm-hmm. But let's go back to this show. And
we must.
We're kind of done with the flesh and blood part of this until we get to some questions. But I would and we've touched upon this a lot already tonight, which is awesome. But we got into the conversation last week because DM Ramada, Stephen Cookus, was on as a guest because, again, just upgrading Charmers. And
one beard at a time, yeah.
One beard at a time, baby. And Derek, not Derek, other Derek, Stephen, when we're in the middle of talking about TCGs and stops saying, he just goes, why? Like, what? He says, well, why TCGs?
Oh,
and I was like, I have put zero thought into this. This is, I don't know what to think of. And so I kind of went into a little bit of a depth about it, kind of trying to talk my way through it as a rhetorician by schooling in nature. A lot of times I'm the type that will let my speech do my thinking for me. Eventually I'll ramble long enough that I'll hit the thought that I want to hit. And that's what I was trying to do. And I think I did okay. But at the same time, it wasn't as thought out as I wanted it to be, because I think I owe it to a degree to TCGs to give this more consideration.
Sure.
And to me, it's the best way to consider these is through the lens of others as well, because we all have our own motivations.
Yeah.
And there's no single clear-cut answer to this, and there shouldn't be. It's the same as anything else. It's personal. And in this case, that's one of, and I told you about this. It's one of the reasons that I wanted you on this show, because this is the type of discussion that gets people thinking about their place in these communities and why they interact with these communities the way they do. And I came to the realization in my engagement with it that it's always been community first in TCGs for me, even when I started, because I started in Star Wars. I was a football player and a baseball player.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a small human, and used to be a much more athletic human when my joints worked more than slightly better. But that's also where a lot of the bone breaks came from. But and the concussions, yada yada yada. But the reality of the situation was like I enjoyed that part of it, but I didn't feel like I belonged there. But the nerdier side of it, the geeks that existed, this is 1996, in America, in the Midwest.
Hey, that's where I was too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Iowa and Wisconsin. Right.
Yeah. I was in North Central Wisconsin is when I started playing TCGs in middle school.
Green Bay. Yeah. Fox River Valley.
Green Bay. Yeah. Oh yeah. You must have
that's
told
where,
me that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where you were, but I was in northern Iowa. I thought you were.
No. I'm a fan of Green Bay and football.
Okay.
But I was north of a city called Wausau. I was actually out in the country, but we would go into the city to play card games.
Gotcha. Okay. My ex-wife's family is from Iron Mountain, Michigan, so used to drive up through that way to get to the Upper Peninsula a lot. Yeah. And being into those things in the Midwest in the mid 90s, had like a stigma attached to it that this isn't cool. Mm-hmm. And at some point in time, I learned to stop giving a shit.
Yeah.
Which was probably the best day of my life whenever that happened. And I became friends with that kind of the outlier group that existed. And what was funny is that outlier group kind of had the D&D kids and the sci-fi nerds. They all hung out together.
Yep.
But they separated on certain things. And the D&D kids all played Magic, and the sci-fi nerds all played Star Wars.
Okay.
And I identified as closer to the sci-fi side of things as growing up, watching Star Trek: The Next Generation with my mom, things like that. And watching Star Wars growing up with my, just on my own, and really enjoying the sort of epic nature of Star Wars in a lot of ways. Darth Vader has always been one of my favorite characters since I was like 6 years old. It should tell you a lot about me at that point. But all of that kind of coalesced with this group. But then at the same time, I got really into punk rock music. It was finally introduced to me, and the punk culture was introduced to me at the same time. So I also identified with that. Well, that was part of the Magic players.
Okay.
And so I kind of strode the line, but I started with Star Wars and then drifted into Magic and did both until Star Wars died off. But for me, community was taught to me, real community where people have each other's backs. They lift each other up. And it's not about you. It's about the greater us and the greater we. It really started there. And that being the introduction to that concept, I've always had an attachment through TCGs to that. And I look at this, like even this show, 151 episodes, and I'm not stopping.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because of any sort of egotistical thing in this case. It's because I love the community we've built, and I want to do the best I can for them. And it's because of that caring that I'm keep gravitating towards and building these communities, like our Star Wars community here in Des Moines. Me and a few other guys are the ones that started up. I fired up the Discord. I created, brought some guys into different roles that were also in that passionate community building piece of it. And I'm proud of that community too. And it becomes what I think the attachment grows greater when you become part of that community building and stewardship. And I think to me, that's a lot of the why that I didn't get a chance to really talk about. I talked about the lottery aspect because who the hell doesn't love the pure shot of serotonin and adrenaline when
Oh
you
yeah, ripping
open
packs is
something.
great.
Yeah, ripping
Yeah,
packs is amazing. And so there's that part of it, but on the other side, the community part of it, I think, was the part that I was missing when I was talking through it last week. But let's talk about your journey now, because
sure.
I think, we come from similar places, right? We're roughly the same age.
I believe so. Yeah.
We're both Midwestern kids. I graduated high school in 1999.
Oh, 2001
And
for me. Yeah. So we're
so, yeah,
real
a couple of
close then.
years.
Yeah.
Yep. A couple of years. And um, it's interesting that we came from the same places, but I can almost guarantee that our experiences were somewhat different. But where did it start for you? How did it start for you?
I think it's so it's hard to I'm trying to think of where to begin with the beginning, but uh I think it's a blend of things for me. It's a blend of being competitive in a game, which is something I just naturally loved since I was born, and I learned at a very young age you could compete with other people for games. There was, I think, a big part of it was when we didn't I didn't come from a rich family. We weren't like, dirt poor, but we were definitely poor. So anything we wanted, we had to like find a way to make the
Mm-hmm.
money and get ourselves when it came to game systems and all that kind of stuff. So
Same. Yeah.
I really loved video games, but so if I wanted to play them, though, I had to go to like a friend's house to do it. And so I learned in elementary school that when a friend said they got a new game, I would say, I can beat you at that game. And they would be like, no, you can't. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just have to come over and play it and we'll find out.
Oh,
And so I think like competition became a necessary component of getting to play at all. And I also just really loved it. I think I loved competing with them, even if it was something I never played before. It was all
sure.
talk,
Yeah.
right? But I think so. I think loving competitive gaming, and I liked watching football and stuff, even as a kid. So just liking competitions, and then it was. I still remember like my first game of Magic ever, my first TCG game ever, where I was like in a cafeteria visiting the high school that I would be going to later. I was in middle school at the time. I was like in seventh grade, I think I was. And a friend of mine that was a freshman in the high school, was a couple of years ahead of me, showed me Magic the Gathering. And he was like, here's the deck. He gave me a red deck to play. And so I was like, oh, Lightning Bolt, all this stuff is so cool. This was in like the revised era. I don't even think Ice Age was out yet. Maybe it was like 95. Yeah, I guess Ice Age would have been out yet, but
Yeah. 95. Yeah.
yeah, it would have been. But the thing that really struck me was that I could build my own deck and then play the deck that I built against the deck somebody else built and see whose was better and see who could pilot theirs better. And that concept of just building something that was your own and then putting it up against somebody else's thing that was their own and then seeing who could do better, that has just been the hook that's kept me coming back, for decades since then, right? So like opening packs is fun and all that, sure, but like, and I do love that, but really it's the essence of it is my deck building versus your deck building, my piloting versus your piloting, that individual one-on-one competition. And so that is a big part of it. Because like I had like one friend who played TCGs with me at that school. And other than that, we'd have to go to the card store to play with other people, and we would just like stay inside at recess, and everyone would be like, who are those weirdos staying inside? And
Wow.
I never cared. I was like, yeah, I'm doing the thing that I think is fun. You're doing the thing that you think is fun. That's fine. We're both doing the things we think are fun, And so it never really bothered me, but we would play everything like Magic, Star Wars, Star Trek, also another
Oh,
Decipher
yeah.
game.
Decipher game.
Yep. My little brother and I would just buy starters of every new card game that came out, although we got
X-Files.
yeah, X-Files,
Rage.
L5R, Rage, BattleTech was a great
Oh,
game.
yeah.
I
Oh,
bought more
yeah.
than I bought a lot of BattleTech,
Oof.
as much as I can. Legend of the Five Rings, the original,
Yep. L5R original.
Alien versus Predator, the original Dragon Ball Z card game where
Mm-hmm.
you had like a little like power meter
Made by
thing on the
Skull,
side of the
right?
card. Yeah, you had like a little plastic
Yeah.
thing you moved up and down the card.
Yep.
So everything, we just play everything. And as I've gotten older, and then of course my career after college became esports, and I got into that as a commentator, and then made a career out of that. And now, as I'm kind of moving more behind the camera in esports and doing more with card games and kind of going back to that more, I've kind of come to the realization that for me, what I just really love is systems. I love learning about new systems, figuring out those systems, and then breaking those systems. And I like to watch other people break those systems too, whether it's a video game or a card game or what have you, a political system, like
Sure.
any sort of system, right? Any sort of like construction of getting from point A to point B, and then seeing people really make it efficient and like learn to do things with it that weren't, people didn't think were possible. It's just such a fascinating thing to me watching human beings interact with systems, that's what I kind of have come down to realizing is what I really love about card games and video games and all that, is that it's not the IP, it's not the packs, it's just learning the game systems and talking. I love talking to the developers and learning from them why they did what they did, how they feel they should change it based on how the game is living in the real world. All that stuff is so fascinating to me. And so that's what, for me, why TCGs at the core of it, it's a big blend of what I talked about, but at the very, very core of it, I would say it's the love of the systems that developers come up with and seeing how people use that and how I can like interact with it. That's the most fun thing for me, I think.
Would you consider yourself a history buff?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I'm not like, I do read history. I feel like I have to have like an incentive to dive into something historic. Like for instance, when I lived in Korea, I studied Korean history because I was like, well, if I'm living here, I should know about the place I'm living, and
Agreed. Yeah.
I collected coins. So I learned everything there was to learn about Korean coin history. I'm probably like one of the, highest knowledge level non-Koreans on Korean coin history out there, because it's a pretty niche, field. But
yes.
Yeah. So, but I do like history. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a thing. It's called the Clifton Strength Finder. It's a businesses use it a lot. It's a series of tests that
those things called businesses. I've heard of those.
Oh,
yeah.
they're a nightmare.
I don't think I'm ever going to work in one again, but
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, but I've heard of that. Yeah,
they exist, and so they try to pattern things. It's weird because they try to pattern things and they abandon things midstream all the time. It's effectively the same as the American political system.
Fun.
But yeah, not so much. And one of the things that they tend to do is they have people take this thing called a Clifton Strength Finder, and you answer questions, but you answer like. Some people will obviously not care and they'll just click buttons or whatever.
It sounds like the replacement for the Myers-Briggs thing. Like everybody was so big on the Myers-Briggs test. And like, well, what are you? And now I've heard of this thing like taking that place of that,
Yeah, this is a little bit deeper as far as being able to identify. And it's one of those things where if you do give it an honest shot, it will at least give you some idea of how you think potentially in ways that you didn't understand. And one of the thing that tracked the highest for me was context. I need to know how things work. And that is why I'm obsessed with history. And that's also why my job, like literally the job I hold, is to take a system and break it. That is the job I am paid to do.
That sounds fun.
Sometimes it's real fun. And it was interesting to me because one of the things that paired into that I didn't really think about until I read it was I have a large interest in history. And because history is a contextual lens to the present. And so I was like, oh, that's why I will listen to a history podcast for 6 hours on a drive and not be bored. Right. Because I'm absorbing reasons I don't know. And then being able to apply it to today lets me know just how fucked we are, which is heavily, in case you were wondering. And I was like, that's interesting to me. I'm sort of fascinated by the fact that we have these little pieces of us that are traceable to different behaviors that are probably broad enough if they're coming up in this type of thing, which, let's be fair here, these personality type quizzes and things are mostly worth nothing.
Yeah.
But if you can find little pieces of them, it's like anything. You can always find some value in anything.
Well, I do worry too that this corporate obsession with this type of thing, the Myers-Briggs, and then
they've abandoned that, by the way.
I know. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, historically, it's gone from that to that.
Yeah.
My maybe overly cynical look at corporate America and all that, is saying, well, this just sounds like another way for bosses to not have to get to know their employees.
Correct.
And, so that it's like, hey, I've got the system that figures out your strengths so that I don't have to actually be a boss and get to know
Mm-hmm.
you and, figure that out myself, and then when we lay you off, I don't have to feel as bad because I don't know you very well,
Yeah,
that's, to me, that's what that sounds like. And
pretty much.
maybe that's way too cynical, but,
No.
and, that's me, never wanting to be a part of a corporate structure ever again. But, that's what I hear in that too, a little bit, is
Yeah.
the resistance of interpersonal interaction, which seems, just from what I've heard from friends that work at companies, seems like that's kind of the way to do things now, is like distance yourself from the people that are there as much as possible. So when bad things occur, you don't have to feel as bad. We're
Yeah.
very bad feelings averse in
Oh yeah.
in right now in this era. It's like, oh, I don't want to feel bad. Oh no, I don't want to make someone else feel bad. It's like that is too bad, because feeling bad is usually what propels growth the fastest. So this resistance to any sort or any form of feeling bad is kind of just, I think, holding a lot of people back.
I agree.
I don't enjoy feeling bad. Nobody enjoys feeling bad. But if you could recognize how to, grow from it, then it can be a very, very valuable tool. So it can be an
Mm-hmm.
asset. And so a lot of, people are missing out on that, it feels like. But maybe I'm getting too philosophical right now.
I don't think so.
But yeah, that's I do feel that.
Yeah. The only thing I want you to take away from being on this show for tonight is there is no such thing as being overly cynical about corporate America. There's
There
no
you go.
such thing.
And I think there's a lot of great groups within companies, but I
Mhm.
think there's very few well-run companies, from
Zero.
the top. Man, because I don't get me started on esports and the incompetence, absolute
Well,
incompetence at the top
woof.
and the middle. Like, just,
Woof.
and then you hire the people who are experts in the field, and then you're like, nah, you're just the gamer kids. I'm Joe VIP from sports. I know how to run this esports thing. And fast forward to, like, record scratch, fast forward to like 2 years later, it's like everything's on fire in the office. Like, we're out of money, sir. And he's like, I don't know what happened.
It's the Eric Andre meme of shooting the dude on the couch and then like, I don't know what happened. It's
It's and then all of us are like, well, we were telling you
told
what was
you.
happening the whole time, but
Yeah, listen, but whatever.
yeah.
All right. So we did have a comics corner question. I know that you, at least at some point in time, are a comics book fan.
I always I try. I'll say I tried to be, but I never really have been. But I've tried multiple times, but I just don't enjoy comic books because, or at least I'll read trade paperbacks, but I don't
Okay.
like comic books because I feel like I never get enough out of a single issue, and I'm like, that's it, and I have to wait
That's
until
understandable.
the next like 10-minute read. Like, that's what I hate about it. Comic books take like 10 to 20 minutes for me to read, and I'm never satisfied at the end. So I've tried. So you wouldn't believe how many times I've been like, okay, I'm going to follow this series now. I'm going to get every issue that comes out. It's going to be great. And then like 5 or 6, and I'm just like, this sucks. And I can't do it.
I know. I understand completely. This is funny enough. This is legitimately a conversation I had yesterday with somebody where they had the exact same thing, where there's like, it's not enough. Every time you pick up an issue and it's not enough.
A lot of people love it, and that's great.
I do. I personally do.
Yeah. I like looking at the art and stuff, of course, but yeah, it's just not for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're just going to skip this and leave this for Charmer then. Pox on us, you have to wait. But comics for me have always been more of I am a person that is chronically having no time. And so the little 10-minute reprieves or 10-minute escapes are enough. I kind of agree with you. I tend to actually, after a comic series has kind of done its course or run through an arc that's longer, and then a trade paperback comes out, even though I collected and read the series as it went, I'll also buy the trade paperback so that I can consume it at once without the shuffle of going through comics. Like, I literally just bought that with Age of Apocalypse tonight, actually.
Yeah, I like reading those because then you can read a while, set them down. It's
Yep.
yeah. But
And
my
they're
little
great.
10-minute segments, I would read books on my phone. I've read like
Yeah.
so many novels on my phone, just in little 5-10 minute segments when I'm like waiting in line for something or whatever. That is until my kid was born, and then I don't have any of those. I have none of those.
No,
Any 5 to
absolutely
10
not.
minute segments when you're waiting, you're just like trying to make sure your kid doesn't like jump into a fountain or something. So yeah.
That's probably a good idea, actually.
So I could do that.
All right, we're gonna pop into listener questions. This should be fun because some of these are pretty interesting. So the first one's a pretty big layup here from Sergeant Snipes. Hey, new charmer.
Hello.
That's you now, I guess.
Oh.
What's your low key top 3 favorite candy bars? Go.
Oh. I number. Let's go 3, 2, 1. I will go for 3 favorite. We'll go Kit Kats. I think Kit Kats are really good.
Okay.
2, and I'm not a big candy guy.
Neither am I.
I will say Butterfingers. I know it's a divisive one. A lot of people don't like Butterfinger. I think
really?
it's pretty good.
Really?
I think so. Yeah, because it is a very different taste than most.
Yeah, sure.
Super
Taste and
chocolate
texture's
and
weird, but.
And then number 1 is Caramello. Remember Caramellos?
Oh,
Do they make those anymore?
I don't know if they do or don't, but they were
it's just
kind of the best.
It's just chocolate with caramel in it,
Yeah.
The most candy bars I've ever interacted with, which is a weird way of saying eating them, but was when like I was a kid and they did like those candy bar drives at school where it's like you're trying to sell
sure for band or whatever.
I've never been a big candy guy. I don't know.
Neither.
I'll eat one every once in a while and I'll get like halfway through and I'm like, I can't do it. I just can't finish it. Same with soda. Now. I can't if it's
I cannot drink a full sugar soda. Like I can't do it.
Yeah, I have to. If I'm gonna drink soda, it has to be like one of the 0 or or more. If it's got like the high fructose corn syrup in it or whatever, I can't like finish the whole one, which is probably good. But yeah.
Yeah, this probably stems from Josh Scott, the rules and policy manager for Flesh and Blood, is a fan of the show. He comes on here whenever there's a new set to talk through the rules with us.
Nice.
And he's the best dude. I love that guy so much. His work is great, but it pales in comparison to the person. But Derek and I are on the chocolate list for Josh Scott. So he'll bring from New Zealand. He'll bring us Whitaker's chocolate bars, slabs.
That's exciting.
Of epically good chocolate it doesn't taste like American chocolate at all because it's not hyper sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it just is chocolate. And so the last one I got it's called Hokey Pokey Crunch. So it's like a crunch bar, right? So like think of like Nestle's Crunch,
right? But
instead of like shitty Rice Krispies in it, it's bits of honeycomb, of honest to God honeycomb.
I've had chocolate like that. You can get that at Trader Joe's.
I mean, I don't think that you can get the quality of chocolate.
Not that version, but chocolate with honeycomb in it. I've had that flavor before.
But it's so good.
Yeah.
And that kind of broke American candies for me for good. Like I'm just done now.
Hey, I lived outside the US. I know food's better outside the US.
Yeah.
Sorry people that haven't been outside the US. Like it's our reliance on corn, like corn is great, but it's not as great as we, put it up to be. Like corn isn't like the miracle vegetable. It's pretty awesome, but
it's not even a vegetable.
We don't really need to be making sugar out of it or gas. Like
you do realize that's the only reason the economy of the state I'm sitting in works, right?
But you could be growing other crops, though.
We definitely
could. It's
not
like corn is the only thing that grows there.
You can grow literally anything here.
It's just the corn is the thing with the biggest subsidy and has been for 80 years or something like that. It's crazy. It's a long time. Maybe not 80, but
45.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
I think it was 79 when Carter was trying to get the Midwest to vote for him.
Now they're like, we got all this corn. What do you do with it? It's like, I don't know, make gasoline.
Make gasoline, I guess.
Gasoline or sugar. I don't know.
We could be growing hemp and making tensile strength of all types of different things, or we could be growing
just more broccoli. Everybody loves broccoli.
Yeah, I don't think broccoli works on a mass scale, which is kind of the problem.
Doesn't it?
But
You can't
I don't think
mass
so.
farm broccoli?
I don't think so.
Where does the broccoli come from? It doesn't come from hobby farms.
Well, I mean, no, but it
has to
comes.
be.
I mean, machine farmed. Like, I don't think they
Sure.
can machine farm broccoli, which is how corn and soybeans are effectively farmed.
That is true. I don't know if that's. Yeah, I guess I don't know enough about broccoli. You know, when I lived in Wisconsin, I lived in a county called Marathon County that produces 95% of the United States' ginseng.
Really?
Yeah, it's like this one county in Wisconsin is just the perfect climate for ginseng. And so all the farms around me were all ginseng farms. They all this canopies over them, all that. And so because they had these canopies, because ginseng needs a shaded area to grow in,
sure.
mostly it grows in forests naturally, they couldn't drive, like farm trucks and things underneath the tractors underneath it to do all the machine farming that we're used to with corn, alfalfa, and all that. So they'd have to hire people such as me in middle school to walk down the long rows and hand weed all of the rows of ginseng and miles of rows. So I did that in middle school. And the reason this is relevant for this is that the money I made saving up to that was to buy my first Super Nintendo when that came out. And then when it was new, and then also to buy cards. So ginseng money is what paid for my early TCG addiction a lot.
Funny enough that that is also the process for soybeans as well. Oh. You cannot machine weed soybean fields.
Okay.
And so you have to walk the rows of soybeans, pulling the weeds physically.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it's just, I did that in middle school as well. And then also detasseled corn, which holy shit is misery.
Yeah. I did a little bit of that too. Yeah. Cause we'd had some cornfields there. And my mom had a huge garden growing up behind our house. And so we'd work in that. And when I say huge, I mean huge. We were a family of 10. And
my God.
And it's not like this wasn't like subsistence farming. Like we still went to the grocery store and all that. But like that farm was big enough to produce like a lot of great fruits and vegetables for us for months. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so we worked in there. Yeah.
All right. Next one, we're going to do a little skipping and go to Aladoris, who said, went into GameStop with an expanded TCG collection, in quotes. It was 16 feet of mostly hooks with single pack Pokemon packs. How do you all feel about GameStop trying to push into the card market and its recently announced partnership with PSA? Do you know about the PSA thing?
No.
You can now grade cards through GameStop.
Really?
And they are selling graded cards at GameStop.
Actually kind of makes me want to go to GameStop for the first time in like a decade.
Fair.
Are the prices good? Like, is it just Pokemon? What is it?
It's just Pokemon right now.
Oh,
I know that.
That's less exciting.
It's much less exciting.
You know, the last time I went into a GameStop was probably, I think it was at least 10 years ago. And
really?
there was a game that just came out and I'm like, all right, there's a GameStop nearby where I'm grabbing lunch. I'll run in and grab the game from GameStop. And so I went in and there was the game behind the counter. And I sat there for like 10 minutes while one employee argued with somebody else about their price of their PS3 or something. Another employee was like helping somebody else. And then a third employee was literally just sitting on the desk and was ignoring me. And so I stood there for like 10 minutes and I was like, all right, this is why I don't come in here anymore. And I just walked out and I just bought the game from the the console store and downloaded it. I've never bought another physical game since.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I just went to this really quick for the card grading service at GameStop because now I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this.
So you drop them off. So it's $16 a card. So that's pretty close to, I think, standard pricing.
Uh-huh.
And it's flat shipping for as many cards as you drop off at $5 per order. Free if you have GameStop Pro or whatever.
It's kind of brilliant of them to do this actually, because GameStop was probably like dying. I mean, I know we all love the stock, blah, 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 but like,
do we? Like
a lot of people I think are more having my experience where they're going in and just not having a great time buying video games. So this is actually, I think it's actually kind of smart.
So you can take it in, you can pay to have it graded, you drop it off. They're calling it a 45-day turnaround time here.
It's about right for that.
That sounds close. Yeah. And then you can either pick it up or you can trade in your graded cards to GameStop for cash or credit. You can sell them or trade them to GameStop for cash or credit.
Which, if you've already taken the time to get them graded, don't sell them back to GameStop.
Please don't. Yeah.
No, you'll get like the most you'll probably ever get is like 60% of the value.
Oh, you won't get that.
That's why I said like the most I can imagine.
Absolute most. Yeah, that is.
And if you took the time to get it graded, take the time to actually just sell it.
Yeah. Next one is from Matt Two Tokes, one of our favorites here. Since it's episode 151, what is your favorite Pokemon from the original 151? Mine is Machamp, due to having the card in one of my first Pokemon decks. I could not tell you the 151 original Pokemon. I have no idea.
I wonder if I could name them all.
My God.
I could probably get pretty close. But those are like the only ones I know, though.
Are they all in the Pokemon wrap or whatever?
Probably, yeah. Yeah. Because the original wrap was the original 151. And that's like the only Pokemon game I've ever beaten was Blue on the Game Boy. Yeah.
The original Game Boy.
Yeah, I blew that game.
You blew the
back
game.
Back to that. Yeah.
We're back. We're bringing it back.
Blew that Pokemon. Well, let's not say that. No. That's a whole different subreddit.
Sure is.
But yeah, no, it's funny that Pokemon comes up. So what's your favorite?
I know so few Pokemon, so I kind of have to like describe them and hope I get like the
describe
names
a
right.
Pokemon, and I'll see if I can name it. We'll turn this into a
okay.
Describe
it's like
a Pokemon.
It's like a rock with arms that looks like upset at life.
Geodude.
That's the one. Geodude.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's easy.
I like a Geodude.
Yeah. Rock with arms that looks upset at life. That's pretty much Geodude. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one. So is that one of the originals?
Hold on. Let me find a picture of Geodude and link it in our Discord conversation and then you can.
All right. We'll confirm my Geodude-ness here.
Here you go.
All right. Yeah, that guy.
That's him. All right.
Yeah, that's it.
Nailed it.
Is that one of the original 151?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so that's my favorite of the 151.
Well done.
Well, so obviously you know them all.
Well, I know Geodude at least.
Well, you just claim to maybe be able to name them.
I think I could name a good amount of them. I won't because we don't want this podcast to get too long. Yeah, but mine would be Oddish for sure.
What's Oddish?
Oddish is like it's like a little like radish kind of thing. Here, I'll find a picture for you.
Radish.
It's like a little onion kind of thing.
Okay.
Here's Oddish. Here you go. But so I don't know. I just think he's cool. He's just kind of chill, He's just like he's just a little radish dude, and
it's got salad on his head.
He's chilling, yeah. But anyway, turns into like a Pokemon that sprays venom. So that's cool. Poison or whatever. And there's a story behind it too, not the poison part, but Oddish, where I played Magic and all that kind of stuff, and I'm the oldest of 8 kids, and so my younger siblings would see me playing card games and going to these card game things, and they'd be like, "Oh, we want to do that too. We want to play card games like our older brothers." So my parents bought them some Pokemon cards, and since I had just gotten my driver's license, they were like, "Hey, guess what? You can drive them to the card shop and take them to these Pokemon tournaments." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I would go there, and I'd be like, "Well, I don't really have anything else to do," so I would just play a little bit. And then I started helping the store owner run the tournaments because it was just a bunch of little kids, back then.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Then I became the gym leader for that store, where back then you got like a little booklet when you played Pokemon in stores in these card shops, and you would get stamps and you would get these little metal badges. And different stores in the area would have different badges, like from the game, like the Earth badge, Fire badge, Water badge, whatever. And so we were the store that gave out the Earth badge. And so they would have to beat me to get their Earth badge. And so I had this like green grass deck, and like it wasn't the best. It definitely wasn't top of the meta deck at the time or anything like that. But I enjoyed it and I was pretty good with it. So I'd like play a game with these kids, and I like beat them one time, and then they'd play again. I'd be like, "Oh, you got me, and here's your badge," and try to provide a fun, experience for them, doing this. So, and Oddish was a big component in that deck. So that's how he became my favorite Pokemon.
Alls I really like get from Oddish is that it is a crop that then eventually grows and then sprays the pesticides that was put on it back at people.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of dope, actually.
Oddish
It's like
is
an eco warrior at that point.
hardcore, you know? Yeah.
Well, yeah. You kind of got to be, right?
Yeah, that's oddish.
Yeah, I didn't know the whole gym leader thing. That's our gym like badge thing.
Yeah,
That's kind of interesting,
it definitely
honestly.
doesn't exist anymore, but there was this real effort at the time to really try to create like a Pokemon experience for the kids playing this game, you know? So your store wasn't just your store, it was your gym, you know, that you went to basically. And yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
Huh, that's
Some
kind of
people
cool.
out there know what I'm talking about. And I've still got one
Yeah.
of those Earth badges too.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've noticed that I am born the exact right year to be into TCGs and have zero Pokemon experience.
Oh yeah.
Because even people that are just a year younger than me are, started in Pokemon.
Mhm.
And I'm like, my beginning interactions with Pokemon were children screaming and crying in the Babbages I worked at because they wanted their mom to buy them either the newest Pokemon game or a pack of Pokemon cards, and they got told no.
Yeah, I wouldn't have really interacted with it that much either if aside from playing the video game, if I didn't have younger siblings that were into the card game.
Yeah.
Yep. It was fun. I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Well, all right. The next one's from Jordan, and I got to preface this pretty hard. Okay. So Jordan might legitimately be your biggest fan in the world.
Oh, cool.
You are as close to a deity for him as probably exists on the planet.
Wow.
He is my original, him and his wife Abby are my original co-hosts for this show.
I remember this guy. I remember you talking about him.
Yep. And so when he was alerted to your presence on this show, he decided for the first time in forever to write me a book of stuff. And then because Jordan knows exactly how these things are put together, since he used to do it, he formatted it in Discord. So I had to copy it in pieces or else it would tear the entire fabric of this stupid, lineup apart. And I'm like, he did that to make my life a living hell on purpose. So now I'm going to make sure he's embarrassed in front of his hero.
Okay.
But yeah, he actually used to try to do StarCraft casting and stuff like that because of you when he was in college.
Well, that's really nice. That's
yeah.
cool.
So he is like, that was one of the things is when we hung out in Minnesota when we were there for nationals, and he had texted me and said something about, hey, how's it going? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm just hanging out here with Charmer and Doa, and he just starts lacing profanity at me, and I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I wanted to have.
I met him in Minneapolis, didn't I?
No, he wasn't there.
No, didn't I? Oh, okay. Well, sorry.
He decided to not come and then found out that would have been the time that he would have got to meet you and got very sad about it.
Oh, wow.
Well, you should take your opportunities in life.
That was it. Now I'm in California and there's no way to get back. Yep.
Yes, there's no such thing as airplanes or anything else. It's a dead issue.
That's right. There's mountains in the way.
Yeah. I played enough Oregon Trail to know that that's a real problem.
It's true. Could get dysentery. Yeah.
And whatever you do, don't ever ford the river.
No,
that is the biggest trap in that game is fording the river. Just don't.
Walk around.
At any rate, go around. Jordan says for Doa, not TCG related, but do single player games like Brood War stand a chance of making a comeback in the modern esports scene? It seems like the emphasis continues to be on multiplayer team oriented games. While PvE is a great esport, my current favorite, is there any road forward for RTSs to return to the main stage? Also, we got one other additional here.
Okay.
Who was his favorite StarCraft player? It can either be SC2 or Brood War, but who is he the biggest fan of, not necessarily favorite to cast? His favorite domestic was Huck, and foreigner was Marine King Prime.
Okay. Those are both good choices. So as far as the first part of the question goes, or maybe I'll answer the second part of the question first because that'll be faster. But I would say, and I'll do a Brood War one and a SC2 one. My favorite, I'll do North American and Korean. That's a better way to divide it. My favorite foreigner in Korean, we'll say it that way. So my favorite non-Korean pro was probably, it's a tough choice. Jinro is up there for sure. Jinro is really, really fun to watch. I would say, Huck was good. Moro. It's tough because there were a lot of really fun ones to watch, but probably Jinro, I would say. Yeah. Jinro. One of the most successful too. Besides like Stefano, obviously, right? Or Scarlet. But I digress. Back to the question about will 1v1 RTS games make a comeback? And I don't really know, but there's a lot of companies trying to make that happen right now. You've got at least 4 different RTSs that are trying to vie for that kind of thing. You've got Stormgate. You've got which is Stormgate is like a bunch of former Blizzard people. You've got Immortal, which is a bunch of former SC2 community people. You've got Zero Space, which is some former SC2 pros. You've got Battle Aces, which is David Kim, one of the former lead devs on StarCraft 2. I can't remember what his exact title was, but he was one of the top people on that game. And so he's working with another company to make a game, and they're all interesting in their own right. None of them have really captured what, you know, that ethereal thing that made StarCraft very special. And it might just be that StarCraft held that special place in people's hearts already, and that's something irreplaceable. But they're all good in their own way, and they're all trying to do the same thing in unique ways. So I'm very curious as these games make their way through alpha and beta and then eventually to release, Stormgate probably being the farthest along of any of them. Are any going to really capture any sort of esports market? I think the trouble really is that esports in North America is kind of just in the dumpster right now. So even if it is a great game, even if it is a great esport, it might not matter because there just isn't really an industry to support it right now. A lot of the money has gone out of the scene right now, and that's not a forever thing. I feel like in 4 to 5 years we might see some investment in the space again once all the bad has been purged, which there needs to be more purging done, but much of it has been discarded already, just through their companies going bankrupt, but or their leagues dying or their teams dying. But we need a bit more of that to happen before we can start to really kind of rebuild, I think. And when we do, hopefully one of these RTSs will be popular. I think, like I said, I think each of them has something good going for them, and so I'm rooting for all of them. You know, will any of them be as big as StarCraft? Hard to say. You know, it's just really impossible to say what the future holds with that. But people are trying, and I think there is a desire for a 1v1 combat again. I think card games being as big as they are right now is evidence of that. I think people getting really burnt out on, you know, MOBAs, on like, man, a bit like, can people please stop making hero shooters? Like, just stop. There was another one announced, like it's called like Ethos or something. They've all got names like that now, where they're like Ethos, Pathos, like you know, they're all these very ambiguous
Jesus.
kind of names, but they're all
Oh
this.
my
They're a
God.
very ambiguous sounding name with a very samey sort of like look and feel to everything. And yeah, I played a bunch of this. A lot of people are getting excited about Deadlock, which I think is, it looks pretty decent. And one of the biggest things they have going for them is that Valve is making it. Valve has traditionally kind of
Oh,
stayed out of
right.
esports, which has been, I think, the best thing they could do for their esport, which goes for any gaming company. The best thing you can do for esport is stay out of your esport. You should know that by now. But you know, but just in general, yeah, we don't need any more hero shooters. We've got enough. So if you're thinking of making one, don't just make a different game. Let's make a different game. You've got, I'm sure, whatever company, if I'm speaking to a company that's thinking about making a hero shooter right now, again, don't do it. Make a different game and just count on the people who are there being creative enough to do that. Because if you have a gaming company that is incapable of making anything other than a copycat hero shooter, then I don't foresee you being a game company for very long. So you might as well get ahead of things and make a game that's not a hero shooter now, and you know, be unique in that way. So
Now,
there's my rant anyway.
I love a good rant. If we are 4 to 5 years away from purging the evil, so to speak, from that side of the community,
well, that's I was more saying that we're 4 to 5 years away from things having been purged and then time having passed to where people want to invest in the space again. Mostly,
right. So my question kind of into that was, do you think that things like Stormwatch and Immortal, or Stormwatch is a comic book, Stormsgate, and Immortal are too quick to market?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just kind of a bit of bad luck, more than anything. But I also think it's like I played some of the Stormgate campaign and all that, which is I'm glad they have a campaign. They absolutely should. But it's weird to say, but there's not a lot of like base building that goes on in it. It's a lot of like
That's weird.
walk your little group of units from here to there, defeat a couple little enemies, talk to some people. There's your level,
That's boring.
Yeah, and the thing is, even StarCraft 2 started going a little bit in that direction, campaign-wise, towards the end of that. And,
yeah, okay.
And not everything needs to be cinematic and, story-driven 110% of the time. Let people just play your game. Let people just build bases and explore a map and
Yeah.
Uncover bits of a story as they do that, So I think there's that. Stormgate feels like it moves a little bit slow to me for some reason. I don't know why. It just feels a little bit slow. It's that's a whole different podcast, getting into how I feel about all four of these RTSs. But like I said, I like things about all of them, but none of them have quite hit the mark that that StarCraft 1 or 2 did. But again, that might be impossible. Yeah. There might be some sort of ethereal bar that can never be reached, right? In people's hearts, essentially.
Yeah, I kind of feel that, mainly because I have zero reaction to most most games that were cast as esports or anything like that. Mm-hmm. The exception to that rule is StarCraft. And it's because I still have fond memories of playing the StarCraft beta. We had gotten a burned beta copy in 1998 or whatever. And we played that thing over LAN, like in a duplex in Overland Park, Kansas, all the time, to the point that, like, to piss off his neighbors, my buddy hooked up like an insane sound system to it and would play Zerg, turn the volume up as high as he could, and face the speakers to the paper thin wall on the other side. So all those disgusting Zerg sounds of them being born and stuff were just getting piped straight into like their bedroom. And
that'll set the mood.
That will set the mood for sure. Well, there's going to be a lot of squelching anyway. You might as well just keep hearing the rest of it.
What about the insectoid screams, though? That's where it gets a little bit odd, but yeah.
And the hydralisk like clicking. Yeah. Okay. That cool. God, that brings back memories.
Need more gas?
Vespine really. Gas? Not really. Okay. Well, construct additional pylons then. Yeah. But one more here that we're going to do tonight, saving a few for when Charmer comes back. But last one's from Johnny Pastrami. Johnny's a weird one, by the way.
Oh, fun.
Do you guys have any weird little rituals you do while you take a shower?
I don't know, because I don't really know how anyone else takes a shower, so I don't know if anything I do is weird or not. I guess I need to shower with more people. But I'll get on that. But yeah, I don't think so. I mean, my general order is I wash my hair, and then I put the conditioner in my hair, and then while the conditioner is in my hair, then you do the body real quick, and then the conditioner's been in about long enough, and then you wash it out, and then that's it. You rinse, you're done. Pretty straightforward. I
have this, so the routine's a little more complex.
Oh yeah. I used to have long hair. Did you know that? I
did actually.
Long hair, yeah.
You brought that up, I think, the first time we talked to you. We got into hair routines, I guess. And
I did not take care of it either. I was in high school, and I probably looked disgusting.
But so for me, it's you get in, detach the shower head because it'll go nuclear hot to start.
Oh.
And then so face it away, wait for you wait a second so that it's just hot. Make sure you give a good rinse on the undercarriage before you put the shower head back up. You get nice and damp across, you moisten down, if you will. The champagne goes in.
Maybe I don't want to shower with people.
Yeah,
champagne. That's
right.
This is okay. Maybe this is strange.
Well, I mean, champagne? I do drink High Life in the shower sometimes, and that is the champagne of beers.
Wow.
But we get the shampoo in the hair, and then we get the loofah. We get the body wash in the loofah. We give everything a good scrub. Then we rinse the hair, the shampoo out, and rinse the body. Condition the hair. Then see if it needs another go of conditioner. If it does, condition the hair again, and then take the shower head off, give the undercarriage one last blast to make sure we're good there, and put her back up, turn it off.
Nice.
20 minutes in and out.
That makes me wonder why, with all the One Piece merchandising that exists in the world, why is there not a Monkey D. Luffy?
I don't know.
For showers.
I don't know.
Because I mean, like his hair is kind of like this, like he even has a fro in one of the arcs for a short time, right? You could do a Monkey D. Luffy, like fro Luffy head thing, but then you're rubbing that all over your body. I don't know. I mean, but then again,
people would 100% do this.
Maybe that would sell.
Yeah, that's selling. Yeah. That's selling.
I haven't taken a shower with enough One Piece. I think I'm just gonna stick to myself.
The solo shower. You're just gonna keep with the solo shower.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna assume that the way I do it is best, and kind of keep.
I mean,
keep going from there.
I grew up playing sports and took many showers with many people.
But those aren't like real showers, though. Those are just people like trying to
rinsing
go as fast as possible. Yeah, I mean, I played sports too. Like that's not like, that's just like, all right, let's get this over with so we can just get done and get out.
Get the hell out of here. Yeah. And very, very, very true. But this is the type of question we get out of Johnny Pastrami.
Lovely.
Well, I mean, you got to have them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time to get out of here. Let's thank some patrons. That's what we're going to do real quick. We're going to thank our associate producers. We have Andy, Sindra, Jacob, and the Salty Sea Cat. For our executive producers on up, we have Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon. Dom Lance, good thrust. You always got to get one of those in there because he's got the best name ever on Patreon. Matt Tutokes, Poxanus, Vintox 18, almost to 3 years. We are very close. Philip, Rich, and Sergeant Swanson. If you're interested in becoming a patron of Flesh and Pod, you can go to patreon.com/Flesh and Pod. Links in the show notes. We have some number of tiers. I really don't care. And you pay for a tier, and then when we do our live shows monthly-ish, you can come and hang out. Those are not recorded. We will say things that we won't say on record. They get a little more raw sometimes.
Wow.
Not gonna lie.
Real shower talk.
That is the real shower talk, honestly. We definitely get into the undercarriage. And well, just going to put that out there. If you need to contact us, the best way to contact us is actually through our Discord. Links in the show notes. It's free to join. You don't have to be a member of anything. You can just come hang out. It's a good time. Otherwise, the new best way to get a hold of us is on Blue Sky. If you just search Flesh and Pod, you find us. Turns out that Blue Sky is also fucking easier to use. Who knew? You can just search for a thing, and then you find the thing you're searching for.
Yeah, why do you never see that on Twitter anymore? I search for someone's exact username, and I don't get it.
Right.
I get a bunch of other random crap.
Yep. But if you search... I was like, I don't remember, like, if back in the Halcyon days where, like, the limited number of people were joining Blue Sky, if I ever followed Doa on Blue Sky. I'm just going to type in Doa. Hey, there he is.
Hey, there I am.
And it was just like, if I tried to do that on Twitter, never happened.
You'd find a bunch of like fighting game stuff and beach volleyball stuff.
Oh, yeah. Dead or Alive beach volleyball. Yeah, that was a game.
That was a game. That was a game.
My God. Of all the games made, that was one of them.
Shameless game made by human beings.
What's more shameless? Dead or Alive beach volleyball. Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasai. Or the Def Jam Wu-Tang Clan fighting game. Go.
Oh, definitely Dead or Alive beach volleyball. Come on. Like,
okay.
Just shameless fan service. Yeah.
Do
you really think anyone who bought that game was just super into beach volleyball?
There probably was a couple,
maybe,
but I don't even know. Not enough to move the needle.
Was it a good beach volleyball simulator? I don't even know.
I never played it. Like, not my cup of tea. I did play the other two, and
I never played any other volleyball games, so I just have no other frame of reference.
You just have no frame of reference. Yeah. You're like a child who walks in mid-conversation. The Star Wars The Masters of Terras Kasai is one of the single worst fighting games I've ever played in my life.
It is incredible, though.
It is so bad.
Seeing like Chewbacca just body slam, Boba Fett or Vader. You're like, what is going on in this game?
And then the Wu-Tang Clan fighting game was just awesome because of the voice clips. The voice clips alone make that game priceless. When you get done winning with Old Dirty Bastard and he just yells, "No mess with Big Baby Jesus." It's like, yep, okay, this is exactly what I want in my life.
I never played that one. How did I miss that?
I don't know, but it's epic.
You know, I kind of ran the Primal Rage machine at my arcade.
Oh,
in like junior high. That was another weird fighting game.
I ran the Marvel vs. Capcom machine.
Oh,
that was mine.
I own a Marvel vs. Capcom machine.
Do you?
Yeah. Right now it's in my brother's place in Minnesota because I didn't want to lug it all the way to California. But
Sure.
It needs some maintenance, but yeah.
Original cabinet or rebuilt? Original cabinet?
Yeah.
Damn, that's hot.
Yeah.
All I have is Marvel vs. Capcom and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for my Dreamcast.
Nice. I mean, the Dreamcast versions were great. Dreamcast.
Oh yeah, they're epically good.
Super underrated.
It's my favorite console. It's my favorite console ever.
Caliber on there. Yeah,
I own that too. And Crazy Taxi and
the NFL 2K games were better than Madden at the time.
Better than Madden at the time. But Seaman, you got to have that game. Legacy
of
Kane.
To people what that is. You can't just shout that out.
They know because I've explained this like several times.
You gotta have
that
Seaman
it is
on the Dreamcast. People are going to.
You have to have Seaman on the Dreamcast.
I really like the Dreamcast.
I loved my Dreamcast. Wow. And but it was a game with narration by Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, that's
that
right. I forgot about that.
You are raising.
I only have images in my mind with this, but no.
A genetic tadpole to a being with a face, and you talk to it as it grows, and then eventually it learns language and then converses back with you. So kind of like an early proto AI, weird as hell game.
It's very disturbing.
And then I have a copy of Grandia 2, Skies of Arcadia, Resident Evil Code Veronica. I think I already said Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. Yeah. Power Stone. Yep. We're pretty well loaded over here with the legits.
I found a crazy ad for that game just now. I just Googled it, and this is like
the ads were bonkers.
I can't believe the ads that existed. People aren't going to get to see this, but they're.
Yep.
I can't believe these ads
remember that
existed. One. No wonder parents were worried about us playing video games. They'd see that, they'd be like, "Oh no, what is little Johnny?" What?
Baiting outside of his species, obviously.
That is, yeah.
And there was when that game was coming out, I worked at Babbage's.
Oh. And
whenever somebody would call, I would answer the phone. Thank you for calling Babbage's. We can make sure you can get your Seaman. This is Logan. How can I help you? And my boss would just be like, "It's Seaman," and I'm like, I know what I said.
Yeah.
What? But that game is so messed up and just weird and great, and I love it.
Well, this podcast really did cover a bit of everything, didn't it?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Is to cover a bit of everything.
I'm impressed.
So yes, back to Blue Sky though. If you need to find us, to search us out on Blue Sky. We still have the Twitter account at FleshPod, whatever. You can send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com if you want to do that. Who sends emails?
Send us a fax.
I have a fax machine that is attached to a printer, but I have it not connected to anything that would receive a fax. So moot point. Doa, where can they find you?
Oh, just a GGDOA pretty much everywhere, except for Instagram, where it's DOA Games, because GGDO is taken by somebody, and they don't post, but they've got it. So pretty much GGDOA everywhere, yeah. But I want to tell people to go to icecaveradio.com and join our Discord. This is a Star Wars Unlimited podcast that Charmer and I do. And it's great. We've got a really awesome community built up. We've got almost 500 people in the Discord right now.
I'm in there.
Yeah, we do King of the Hill stuff with the community nights. I'm working on a weekly webcam game night, like webcam locals, basically, that we're gonna do there. And we do a podcast on the side too. We've got merch. So yeah, go check it out, icecaveradio.com. If you're into that game, if you want to learn about that game, there's a new set coming out in just a couple of weeks. Actually, set 3, Twilight of the Republic. Yeah, so. We'll have a lot of content on getting into that, building decks, playing pre-releases. So, and when we say we, I mean I, because Charmer's on vacation right now. But he's with us
in Japan.
He's with us in spirit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I actually have a store showdown on Friday.
Nice.
And then the week after that is the pre-release for the new set. So that'll be fun. And yeah, you should absolutely check that out if you're into Star Wars Unlimited, or even if you're not, you should just give it a listen. It's a lot of fun. I can't thank you enough for coming and hanging out with me tonight.
My
It's been
pleasure.
a blast.
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And so can't wait to see you whenever the next time I see you is. I'm sure down the road somewhere.
Some event at some point.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, I'll come out west or something. I plan on going to Portland in November, but that's nowhere near LA.
Just don't try to
throw that out
the
there.
river.
Why? Like, why? It is just asking for dysentery. That is the stupidest thing.
Rivers are filled with it.
Yep, you're right. All right. Well, thanks again for listening and watching. We should have allegedly a charmer back for the next episode, but we'll see. Who knows? It's whatever. Until then, we will talk to you next week. Oh, Doa's out.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm so tired. Bye.